Hey everyone, welcome to the AutoIntelProject episode 3. We're going to do something different. It's a Sunday. We're going to debut our Industry Insider series. What I'm going to do with this series is talk about some bigger trends that affect the industry, what's going on, what you're seeing, and maybe how it might impact you as a consumer, rather than really delving right into what we're doing in most videos, which is trying to solve immediate problems for you as a consumer and as a user of automobiles. Today's big trend that we're going to talk about is why are crossovers everywhere? A quick other note, if you think this is a good idea, feel free to add some further questions, smash that like button. If you think this is a not so good idea and you just want the random facts to improve your day-to-day life, drop a comment and tell me it sucks. But once again, if this works, then we're going to follow it up with other questions you might have. Why are crossovers everywhere? I'm going to start off. The first thing you need with any question is, am I insane for what I think I'm seeing? And the answer is no. What's happened in the industry over the last few years is cars, which used to be 60% of the industry compared to 40% for light trucks, this is now switched. And to the point where in Canada, light trucks, which is SUVs, pickups, and minivans, now represent something like 60, get even closer to 70% of the industry, and cars have been flat and maybe in many cases even in decline. The full-size car, what our grandparents used to drive, is basically gone. Let's look at Toyota. Toyota's nice because they actually make everything. They're a full line manufacturer. Most manufacturers aren't full line, and they do it with just one brand. Companies like GM will often use 3 or 4 brands to build out their entire portfolio. Toyota has, and we've got here, subcompact, compact, midsize, and full size. These are sort of the sizes of cars, and then you've got cars, and then SUVs and crossovers, and then we've got specialty sports cars. So Toyota has got its 86 and its Supra, which are sports cars. You only need one minivan. It's got the Sienna. These are other specialty light trucks, and then it's got the Tacoma, its midsize pickup, and its Tundra, the full-size pickup. In the SUV crossover domain, the CHR, a recent debut, RAV4, and for the midsize, we're talking Venza, Highlander, 4Runner, and the Sequoia in full size. Car, they've got the subcompact Yaris, the compact Corolla and the Prius, the Camry midsize, and the Avalon full size. Some of the icons you're seeing, this little fire icon, that's because in Canada at least, the subcompact crossover is basically the fastest growing segment these days. And then you've got the Maple Leaf and the Star. This sort of speaks to the biggest segments in Canada and the US. So in Canada, we like things a little bit smaller. So in Canada, the compact car, the compact SUV, and the full-size pickup are our 3 biggest segments. In the US, they're a little bit bigger. So the mid-size car, the mid-size SUV, and then the full-size pickup are once again the biggest segments in the States. America loves its pickups. And the difference here, Corolla in Canada, Camry in the States. Now what's happened is, these compact SUVs have gradually taken over from the compact cars and from the mid-size cars. There's sort of these things that automakers measure, which is transition from one car to the next. So, maybe you start off on a subcompact Yaris, Toyota then sells you a little bit later on a RAV4, then you have a family, they want a Sienna. So that's how Toyota would expect you to walk through their lineup over the course of your life. But yes, the new models are in the SUVs and crossovers, and you're not crazy for thinking crossovers are indeed everywhere. Why? History lesson here. What we've got here is sort of the era, and then I've got the car that was sort of predominant as the family car, and then in this blue writing, I've got sort of the generational dynamic. So in the 60s and 70s, the golden generation was the parents. They had boomers and the kids, and they were smoking their cigarettes, blowing secondhand smoke into our boomer parents' lungs in the backs of their station wagons. We get into the 80s and 90s. Around the mid-1980s, Dodge debuted the Caravan, one of the most transformative vehicles ever. And that was boomers, as the parents had millennial kids, and they schlepped us around to soccer practice in minivans. Green Star there, if you're a parent, minivans for many people are still the best option by far because they just do space so well. Then our parents, then we got into the 2000s and SUVs became everywhere. The Explorer, Nissan Pathfinder, the Toyotas, everyone had an SUV, and it was typically a body-on-frame SUV. The parents are the younger boomers and Gen X, and the kids are once again the older millennials, the younger millennials and Gen Z, or Gen Z for the Americans. And now we're all switching into crossovers, and this really started to happen in the 10s, and this will probably continue on for the next decade ahead. Millennials, my generation now as parents, and I don't know the generation name of the kids, these are basically the same shape, One's unibody, so crossovers are unibody. How they get the crossover is it's SUV shape with a car platform. And what unibody means is that the powertrain elements, so your wheels, transmission, and engine, are all built into the same frame as the rest of the car. Body on frame, this is pickup truck style construction. You have a flat frame and then they put the body on top of it. So that's what body on frame means. Now, because there's sort of two components to the frame, these end up being quite a bit heavier and therefore works on gas. Okay, there's the history. Now let's look at these factors and really just get right down into it. Basically, crossovers are everywhere because they're good enough at everything, I guess, in the minds of most consumers. We've had a demographic trend. Families are getting smaller. You know, my parents, one of them was one of three, one was one of six. Now, you know, most of my friends are one of two. So you don't need a 7-passenger minivan or a 6-passenger station wagon. Further, from a usage case, they actually work and solve a lot of problems for all the different generations that are currently in the market today. The other thing though is it also sort of, you have these peaks with respect to the golden generation boomers and now the millennials representing bigger demographic groups rather than say Gen X or iGen. Next thing is fuel economy. We talked about how crossovers are basically more car-like SUVs, that they're lighter because they're unibody construction and they're just more car-like more generally. This impacts a couple things. Weight and aerodynamics because they're more car-like. This saves on fuel. We've had many years over the last few years where oil has spiked, so fuel economy becomes a real big consideration for the consumer. And then on top of that, in Canada and the US, there are both increasing demands on companies to make progressively more fuel efficient cars. So being able to have a crossover rather than a heavier body on frame SUV enables automakers to stay on side with the law. And the big thing is really just an experience story. We as children grew up in these minivans and SUVs, so we got used to that higher driving position where we feel safer, feel more secure, higher up on the road. And we like that, and crossovers maintain that higher driving position. The size, you know, if you're moving, you're going to need a moving truck anyway. If you're going to need a pickup, you need a pickup. But the thing with crossovers, they're still big enough that you can just throw things in the back and be fine. Also, because they're a little further up the ground, you don't need to worry about, you know, maybe a station wagon of a really big speed bump or something like that. Trends, you know, they're not minivans. Nobody wants, you know, to be that uncool parent driving around in a minivan. And usage, you know, whether it's an ingress and egress, and these things are linked, right? So because the crossover is still a little bit higher, but not as hot, not like crazy high like a body on frame SUV, it's a really nice height for you as a user. You know, if you're a parent putting a car seat in and out. If you are a bit older and struggle with mobility at this point, or you drive around someone who struggles with mobility, because that crossover is a bit higher, you've got it up around the hip point, so it's easy to just slide in rather than getting down into a car or climbing up into a pickup. So it really just does a good job of meeting everyone's needs well enough. And that's why crossovers are everywhere. Thank you. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and drop a comment in below for suggestions on future content. Thanks.